Hello my beautifuls, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Lou Crawford and today I'm going to be going over another edition of my true crime series. So today we're going to be talking about the notorious gangster Al Capone. And the reason why I decided to do this video on him was because I saw that there's a movie coming out this year regarding his life. It's called Capone and it's going to be starring Tom Hardy as the notorious gangster. Looks like it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited to watch it. So today I'm going to be going through a little bit about Al Capone, his life, and also about he apparently had some money stashed away and it's never been found. So we're going to talk about a couple of theories about where that possibly could be, or whether or not he actually did have any money at all. So if that's something that interests you, please stay tuned, and without further ado, let's get started. Alphonse Gabriel Capone was born in New York on the 17th of January 1899. He was born to Italian immigrant parents, Teresa and Gabriel Capone. Now, apparently, Capone showed a lot of potential at school, but he wasn't a fan of the very strict Catholic school rules, and he was expelled when he was 14 for punching a female teacher in the face. It wasn't long before his gang lifestyle started and he joined the 5 Points gang in Lower Manhattan. During this time, he became a bouncer for organised crime premises such as brothels, and it was here that he inadvertently insulted another gangster's sister, Frank Galluccio's sister, and Frank was less than impressed and decided to slash him with a knife across the left side of his face, hence the nickname Scarface. Now, it is known that Capone actually really loathed the name Scarface, the nickname Scarface, and he wasn't a fan of his scar, funnily enough, either. So a lot of his photos, the majority of his photos that were taken would always show his the right side of his face. In the early 20s, Capone moved to Chicago and he became a bodyguard and confidant really to the notorious gangster Johnny Torrio. Now, Johnny was the head of the largest criminal syndicate in Chicago at that time, and they were responsible for illegally supplying alcohol during the Prohibition. Now, there was another gang around Chicago at this time as well, and they were called the North Side Gang. And the two major dudes in this gang were Jaime Weiss and Bugs Moran. Now, their bootlegging operation provided a significant challenge for Torrio and Capone's South Side Gang. And this led to a major turf war between the North Side Gang and the South Side Gang. It was very apparent to the public that Bugs Moran absolutely loathed Capone. He was a very strict Catholic, and he was actually disgusted by the fact that he believed that Capone was responsible for the proliferation of brothels around the city. And because of his Catholic upbringing, he did not engage at all in anything to do with prostitution or brothels around the city. He removed himself completely from that. So during this time, Johnny Torrio actually went and killed one of the Northside Gang's crew, Dan O'Banion, and Jaime and Bugs, in an attempt to avenge O'Banion's life, they attempted to gun down Torrio, but they were unsuccessful. On the 20th of September 1926, they also made a ploy to try and kill Capone. So they went to hit the Hawthorne Inn where it was Capone's headquarters, and they lured him to the windows and shot at him. They were unsuccessful. He wasn't injured, but it was reported that there were about 1,000 shots fired with machine guns and shotguns. 3 weeks later, Jaime Weiss was killed outside the North Side headquarters, and that meant that Bugs Moran was now in charge of the North Side Gang. So of course, Bugs Moran responded to Weiss's death by kidnapping and killing a member of Capone's gang, and this resulted in Al Capone responding by allegedly causing the attack which has now caused the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Now this was obviously an incredibly stressful time, even for gangsters, and due to the fact that Torrio had experienced being nearly gunned down by the Northside crew, he decided to hand over complete control to the then 26-year-old Capone. Now, Capone chose to expand the business by increasingly violent means, and this was, for example, one of the establishments that didn't agree or refused to buy any of the bootleg liquor was repeatedly blown up, and about 100 people died in those explosions during the 1920s. But Capone had an ace up his sleeve. He had mutual relationships with William Hale Thompson, who was the mayor of Chicago, and also the city police, and that pretty much protected him against law enforcement or any prosecution. Capone became increasingly security conscious, and he really wanted to get out of Chicago, and as a precaution he would often turn up at Chicago's train depot and just hire out a whole Pullman sleeper car for himself and his crew, and they would go off to Omaha, Kansas City, Hot Springs, all these different places, and then he would hire out a massive luxury mansion and stay there for a whole week, under an assumed name, of course, or a hotel under an assumed name. He was also a really big fan of having custom-made suits. He was a fan of cigars and alcohol. I believe that his drink of choice was Templeton Rye back then. He also enjoyed the company of the ladies, and he clearly had a fair bit of money because he once spent $40,000. He gave $40,000 to the beer magnate August Busch to hire out his 14-bedroom retreat. And when anybody asked him about how he earned his money or what he did for a living, he would always respond with statements such as, "Oh, I'm a businessman, I supply public demand," or something like that, a roundabout way of not telling exactly what he did for a living. In a way, Capone became pretty much a national celebrity and a bit of a talking point for people. All of this time, the FBI were after Capone, and they were really determined to get him and lock him up. And in 1933, they were successful in doing this, and he was handed down an 11-year sentence for tax evasion and sent off to the federal maximum security prison, Alcatraz. But due to failing health, Capone was released early in 1939 and sent home. And in 1946, physicians examined him and said that his mental health had declined so much that he had pretty much had the mentality of a 12-year-old. And what I didn't mention was that Capone was diagnosed with syphilis and gonorrhea, and this is what caused his decline in mental health. Capone spent his last years at his Palm Island mansion, and on January the 21st, he suffered a stroke that wasn't fatal. And he seemed to regain consciousness from that, and he seemed to also be improving, and he seemed to be improving. But on January the 25th, he suffered a fatal heart attack and passed away. So let's talk about the money now. Now, it's well known that Capone never used anything other than cash. He used Western Union for all of his transfers, and it was never over $1,000. So he must have had quite a big stash of cash somewhere. And prior to his incarceration in 1933, it said that he hid all of that money somewhere, but because of his declining mental health, he couldn't remember where it was. Now, there's a book that was written by Al's great niece Deirdre Marie Capone, and it was called Uncle Al, The Inside Story Told from His Family, or Uncle Al Capone, The Inside Story from His Family. I'll link it below. I can't remember the exact name of it, sorry. But there was a passage that I wanted to read out to you that came from that book, and I believe that this is from his brother Ralph, and it goes like this.
He had an incredible amount of money he couldn't put into a bank account or openly invest. He didn't trust the stock market, he called it a game, and he didn't trust anyone enough, even me, to help take care of the money. So the main thing he did was to get safe deposit boxes in various banks around the country and in Cuba, using assumed names. After he was convicted of income tax evasion and was in Cook County Jail, He confided in me that he'd safely tucked away about $100 million, but he wouldn't tell me where he'd stashed it.
When he was released in prison in 1939, Ralph asked Al if he could borrow some money because he was kind of strapped and he needed some cash. And Al told him that he didn't have any. And when Ralph was confused, because obviously he'd confided in him that he had $100 million stashed somewhere, probably under a mattress or something, but he told him that information. So Ralph was confused and inquired as to why he didn't have any money and asked him about that $100,000. But Capone broke down, basically started crying and said that he didn't know where it was, he couldn't remember. And when he got out of prison, he dug up one place that he thought it would be and it wasn't there. And then he dug up another and it wasn't there either. And then he went to another place and he dug up there and the money wasn't in all of the three places. On the 21st of April 1986, there was a 2-hour live show that was broadcasted in America, and it was called The Mystery of Al Capone's Vaults. Now, this was hosted by a dude called Gerardo Rivera, and it was based around opening of secret vaults that had been discovered under the underground or under the Lexington Hotel, which used to be owned by Capone. Now, there was massive hype about this show, and he was talking and saying that they were going to uncover riches, they may uncover dead bodies, and on top of this, they got in, or to, I guess, back this up, they got in a medical examiner and also people from the IRS, just in case they found dead bodies or riches. A massive 30 million people tuned into this live broadcast. And it was rated as the highest syndicated special in history. I'll pop a link down below just in case you want to check out the footage of that. Now, of course, you're dying to know what was in that vault. And when it was finally opened on live TV, mind you, all they discovered was some dirt and several empty bottles, which Gerardo claimed that one of them was for moonshine bathtub gin. After several attempts to dig a bit further and try and see if they could find anything else, I would say desperate attempts because it was on live TV, Gerardo decided to call it a day. He apologized to viewers. You could see he was super disappointed, and he thanked the evacuation team for all of their efforts. And lastly, I want to talk to you about the theory that he potentially didn't have any money at all. And this came from, this bit of information I'm going to read to you next came from a gentleman called Mario Gomez, and he is the curator of myalcaponemuseum.com. And he says, the money was made by the organisation. Al took his big share and also blew most of it. He was a bad gambler and a big spender. Billions is an exaggeration. Once Al went to prison, that money belonged to the outfit. They took care of him and his family until he died. After that, the outfit stopped taking care of May and Sonny, and Ralph, Al's brother, took care of them as a promise to Al. So, it's true, we probably will never ever know or find out whether there was any money, and if there was any money, we'll probably never find out where it was hidden or stashed. If you have any ideas or any theories about whether or not he did actually have any money, whether or not there is just a ton of safety deposit boxes with keys stashed in the ground somewhere, just drop it down below in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that's all for today, and as usual, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed that, and if you did, as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the absolute world to me. And I hope that you have an amazing day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to seeing you here next time. Take care.